On this edition of Southern Newsweek, an interactive exhibit shows how COVID affects the human body. The old Frankton motor camp is to get a makeover before Christmas. And Mosgill's swimming pool is closed to make way for a new aquatic centre. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. A new interactive exhibit at the Otago Museum shows the damage COVID-19 can inflict on the human body and aims to encourage people to take an anti-COVID vaccine.
Using 3D art to show the effects of the COVID-19 virus around the world.
So there's a wonderful touch screen where you can actually look around the whole world and actually see the numbers increase quite rapidly through the last year.
Otago Museum science communicator Catriona Gower says the interactive exhibit shows the global reach of the pandemic. And as well as the spread of the virus, there's a model of a 73-year-old Brazilian man's lungs during different stages of COVID-19.
And that virus took over his lungs very, very rapidly. So you see just through a month of his life, the impact that had on his lungs, and even just the amount of oxygen he was needing to have to keep alive.
Catriona Gower says the man whose lungs are on display did survive the illness. But the images he let be taken graphically show the effects COVID-19 has on lung capacity.
It's very, very dramatic, and you can actually have cut-throughs of his lungs, so you can actually see the capacity of them shrink quite dramatically and then start to increase again as he started to recover.
The display is part of the virtual body table in the Tuhura section of Otago Museum. The exhibit was created by Swedish 3D visualization software company Interspectral. Gower says it's a great way of illustrating the need for people to be vaccinated against the virus. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A condolence book has been opened at Dunedin St Paul's Cathedral to mark the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip. The Duke of Edinburgh passed away at age 99 last week, and his death has sparked mourning around the globe.
News of the Duke of Edinburgh's passing at 99 years of age spread across the globe rapidly at the weekend, with a condolence book being opened on Sunday at St Paul's Cathedral in Dunedin. The President of the Victoria League in Otago says Her Majesty the Queen will be well supported, but still deep in grief.
And the nation and the Commonwealth will support her and guide her and love her, but she's still going to be alone and probably quite bewildered. And even though it may have been an expected death, I think it's still going to be jolly difficult for her.
Christine Bell doesn't believe the Queen will step down, as in abdicate, but she is sure their eldest son, Prince Charles, will take on more duties and then the throne in due course.
We will see a King Charles in a few years. I'm sure the Queen's got a few more years to celebrate her life yet. It's just going to be a very hard road for her at the moment. But I'm sure Prince Charles will step up and take over some of her duties, and he will be fine. He will be absolutely fine.
The Queen and Prince Philip visited Dunedin multiple times during Queen Elizabeth's reign. The last time was in 2002 when they met then Mayor Suki Turner. It's been said the late Duke didn't want a big funeral, and due to COVID-19 regulations in the UK, modest arrangements have been made. However, Bell believes something bigger may happen later this year.
But I'm rather hoping, once the restrictions have been lifted mid-year, that they will hold a state memorial service for him, perhaps in Westminster. I think it would be nice if the royal family had something for him. But it would need some forward planning and some organisation, which I am sure Buckingham Palace is very capable of doing.
The condolence book is currently available for people to share their thoughts and prayers for Prince Philip until 2 p.m. daily at Dunedin's St Paul's Cathedral. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A revamp of the former Frankton motor camp will return to its roots as an authentic Kiwi-style campground. The camp's new lessee expects to open in December with more than 100 tent, caravan and motorhome sites, plus plus a dozen new cabins, all at an affordable rate.
After being closed for over a year, the former Frankton Motor Camp is set to undergo a revamp to be overseen and funded by long-time Te Anau camping ground operators Georgia and Brian McCleary, plus Rochelle Pacious.
We know that Kiwis work really hard for their money, so for us it's about making something that's not only affordable but really amazing value for money.
Owned by the Queenstown Lakes District Council, the site had, over the years, morphed away from its intended purpose, becoming a place of permanent residence.
We're really interested in what the outcome's going to be, which is obviously bringing people to our fantastic district and I guess converting this back to what it was many, many years ago as a place that Kiwi families can come and the kids can grow up and have fun.
The site is now cleared of nearly all the residents' dwellings, with the lessees planning new cabins, shower and toilet hubs, a playground and even spa pools.
We've got around 130 tent, caravan and motorhome sites. So there's ones whether it's the family in a caravan and the kids are in a tent, we've got space for everyone. So space was one of our key factors.
Yep.
And we've got about 12 cabins going in as well. So whether that's just people travelling on a budget and still want to have the luxury of being in a room, or there's issues with the camper van, which can sometimes happen. So everything's going to have lake views, and then we've got a big modern facility hub. So that's going to be everyone's home away from home. It's where they can keep warm in winter, open the big doors up in summer, take in the beautiful views, and just really have that amazing Kiwi atmosphere.
It's hoped the new campground will be open in time for the Christmas holidays. In Queenstown, the South Today.
One of the Mosgiel Pool's most frequent swimmers over many years says many improvements have been made to the pool in his time, but he is ready for a whole new one. The pool is now closed and set to be demolished to make way for a $15 million new aquatic complex.
In the deep end, one last time. Ivan Gamble is sad the 84-year-old Mosgiel Pool has closed, saying he has many fond memories.
Certainly will miss the pool. It was always been a bit of an icon. It's always been here, and yes, we will miss. We had a lot of, especially in the teenage years, we had a lot of fun down here. Sort of all sorts of having the odds, the ciggies behind the back and things like that. But all good fun.
The 77-year-old learned to swim in the Mosgiel Pool, which opened in December 1937, was heated in 1967, and eventually covered in 1984. He understands the need for a new one and remembers a former caretaker from his teenage years.
The caretaker tended to be an elderly retired man they had, and he had very bad arthritis. He could only walk with 2 walking sticks, and but he had a big long pole, a big long bamboo pole that he could actually reach across the pool and if anybody got into trouble. But I never knew anybody get into any trouble or anything.
The Mosgiel Pool closed at the weekend and will be demolished to make way for a new $15 million all-year-round pool. Construction is due to begin mid-year, and it's scheduled to open in late 2022. Ivan Gamble doesn't think he'll drive to Moana Pool in Dunedin, but has plans to keep fit while his pool's closed.
I've got an exercycle at home, do a bit more walking and things like that, but I will miss the pool, definitely. Yeah.
Mosgiel Community Board Chairwoman Joy Davies says the new pool will be wonderful for the community, as the now closed pool wasn't big enough and was in need of an upgrade. In Mosgiel, the South Today.
A team of 24 youths pulled a heavy fire truck along D Street in Invercargill to mark the end of an 8-week-long course. The course required these teens to undergo a physical training regime as well as career education and mentoring.
Before pulling this hefty fire truck through Invercargill city centre, these 23 youngsters underwent yet another gruelling day of activities. It was the final day in an 8-week course called Combined Adolescent Cadet Training Unit and Support, with 3 one-hour training sessions per week of progressively harder physical routines, as well as career education, motivational speakers and mentoring.
We've been running it for 10 years. It's a nationwide program. It builds teamwork and confidence and just life skills for these children going forward. and you see that they grow in this 8 weeks. It's just amazing.
The final day started at 5:30 a.m. with activities at Oreti Beach and in town, culminating in the team pulling a fire truck several hundred metres down D Street.
Just an awesome 8 weeks of fun and teamwork, and I'm just so proud of these kids. They're amazing. They've done so well.
The team were supported and encouraged by pupils from Te Wharakura or Orowhenua Maori High School. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, protesters stop government possum trappers near Dunedin, and the Dunedin City Council hears from the public about its tourist trains. So catch this and more after the break. Welcome back. Protesters have stopped Osprey workers from setting possum cage traps on a Sawyers Bay farm in Dunedin. It is the fourth time the government-funded contractors have been turned away from the property.
These colourfully dressed protesters are determined to stop Osprey workers entering the 7-hectare farm at Dunedin's Sawyers Bay. Landowner Adrian Black says he does not want the government-funded contractors on his land.
We're protesting about Osprey TB3 invading private land without permission and without due cause.
Osprey is carrying out possum control in the area with the aim of eradicating an outbreak of bovine tuberculosis among cattle. The Animal Disease Management Agency is allowed, under the Biosecurity Act of 1993, to enter private property and conduct pest control operations in order to reduce TB. This was the fourth visit by Osprey requesting permission to enter the Sawyers Bay farm, and they were denied access yet again. Osprey Service Delivery General Manager Vivian Larson says Osprey works with about 300 landowners in the area, and the majority are supportive of the TB program. Osprey has exhausted all options since formally notifying Mr Black in December 2019 of a proposed possum control operation on his property. It is disappointing not being able to resolve the land access issue. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Vaccinations against COVID-19 have begun in Invercargill. A clinic in the Civic Centre is set to vaccinate frontline health workers first, with vaccinations of the general public starting in July.
The Invercargill COVID-19 vaccination clinic is soon to be busy and bustling, and vaccination program coordinator Carl Metzler is pleased to see the facility open.
I guess today is a pretty big milestone, really. I just want to acknowledge, take time to pause and acknowledge that and celebrate the little wins, really. We're going to need those over the next 9 months.
The centre is capable of vaccinating about 360 people a day against COVID-19. But don't plan on going there for your jab quite yet, because their first task is to immunise frontline health workers, and then in May they'll move on to vaccinating people who are deemed to be at higher risk, while the general population will have to wait until July.
At the moment we're targeting our frontline healthcare workers, the 2A and 2B tiers, and then followed by obviously tier 3 and then into our general population. And we'll probably see the centre at its most utilised once we hit that general population rollout.
Set up for the next 12 months at the Invercargill City Council Civic Centre, it's taken a lot of planning to get the clinic this far.
I think both the SDHB and Well South Primary Care Network should be really proud of what we've achieved to date. We've had to move pretty quickly and get across some major logistics, and I think New Zealand's in a really good position, and we need to just really strengthen that position that we've been in by getting as much of our general population immunised and hit that herd immunity target, really.
It's hoped most of the Southland population will be vaccinated by the end of the year. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Phil Garrett and his fellow Flying Kiwi Motorcycles team have attempted to break the national motorcycle land speed record on a rural road near Ashburton. But this time, the engine gods were against them.
A 20-year dream hasn't come true for Phil Garrett. The Christchurch-based motorcycling enthusiast was aiming to go 320 kilometres an hour on a modified turbo bike, which has been modified with planetary gears which are fitted inside the rear wheel. Garrett was hoping to attempt the record this time last year before COVID-19 halted him in his tracks. A number of other bikes were also speeding down the long stretch of the road at Pendarves. Garrett was also racing an electric bike, which he hoped to take up to 160 kilometres an hour. In Canterbury, The South Today.
The Dunedin City Council heard impassioned pleas to keep the city's tourist trains on the tracks at a public forum this week. Representatives from Waitati, Port Chalmers and Middlemarch addressed councillors with one unified idea: keep the local trains. The DCC voted 14-1 to defer the decision.
Scenes like this will become a thing of the past if the Dunedin City Council abandons rail travel around Greater Dunedin and beyond. The Dunedin City Council has heard passionate appeals to not scrap rail which connects the city and outlying suburbs, which is one of the possibilities it announced recently, leading to a climate of fear amongst some Port Chalmers businesses.
They don't think it would be worthwhile doing it if there was no train. So really, fingers crossed that one of the negative options in the report is not followed.
The council says keeping the Tidy Gorge line open could come with a price tag of up to $14.8 million for maintenance and a full upgrade within the next 10 years. Port Chalmers-based accountant Rowan Podofsky understands it's a financial numbers game.
It's the main thing. I mean, I'm because I'm a number cruncher, I'm real about knowing that they need to make a profit on the train.
Podofsky and a group of volunteers recently hired a train to take passengers to and from port for a Port Chalmers Day, where an adult's return ticket was just $10. A group of Waitati businesses banded together to support regular Sunday train trips between the coastal village and Dunedin over summer. The Seasider train took 3,200 passengers during the 15-week program, averaging 270 people a week visiting the area. Councillor Lee Vandervis asked proponents who they thought should pay for the rail system to be maintained.
I think it was fine. I think someone has to ask those questions and it's totally legitimate, but I just don't think that they can look at it as just Dunedin. I think they have to look at the big picture and connecting it to the other regions.
Melanie Borrell says her husband and her opened their business in Waitati during February 2020, but closed it due to COVID within a couple of months. But the train journeys meant they could reopen and even take on more staff. However, they say it's not just about their businesses, it's about the whole community.
We're not speaking on behalf of our businesses, it's a collective of the 6 businesses in Blueskin Bay. Yeah, I think that's really important that we are on behalf of our community, not just our own businesses.
Yeah.
Under the council's selling or leasing the train to an organisation which wants to run a tourism rail service from Dunedin is one of the 4 options for the future of the service. The other options are to shut it down completely and sell the assets, keep it and just use the Kiwi Rail section of the line, or to keep it and run the Seasider and Tidy Gorge trains. In Dunedin, The South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, an old school bus revisits Alexandra as a new digital classroom, and a documentary about early Chinese in Otago is distributed to schools, so see you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. If you're worried about internet banking and the risk of online scams, then a converted school bus may be just the thing you need. Dora the digital bus is bringing classes to towns across the south to help people manage their finances online. Dora is currently in Alexandra, a town where she served as a school bus for several decades before her digital conversion.
A former school bus, which has seen decades of service in Alexandra, is back and serenaded through the town by piper Keith Cameron. The bus's former driver, Earl Bailey, says he noticed a technological change in his passengers over the years.
I noticed a big difference in the latter years where cell phones become the dominant feature, and people would get on the bus and their heads would be buried in the old cell phone instead of saying, "Good morning, Earl," or whatever.
And that technological revolution is what this old bus has now been retrofitted for. Dora the Digital Bus is now a mobile learning centre, offering free classes on digital banking across the country. Sue Kinney uses Dora as a classroom to teach people who might be scared of the risk of online scams and give them more confidence with email and online banking.
Really what we want them to do is feel, once they come on Dora and they're feeling a bit nervous and unsure, we want them to leave Dora feeling far more confident than when they left. We want them to think, okay, this is something that I might be able to give a go, and then go and have a conversation with their own bank and actually make a time to see a personal banker and give it a shot. Yeah, that's our aim is.
Dora's services couldn't have come at a better time as banks in country towns close down and rural residents are forced into online banking. And the Rural Women New Zealand organisation is making sure people will know when Dora is coming to their town.
Just spreading the word that Dora is about and the fantastic service that they provide for people in rural areas, just to become familiar with online banking and the internet in general in this time where there's so many banks are closing and people really are finding it really far more necessary to be in touch with things like online banking.
Dora the Digital Bus is set to travel across the region, stopping in Clyde, Roxburgh, Millers Flat, Naseby, Ranfurly, Aotearoa and Omakau. In Alexandra, the South Today.
Some longfin eels migrating their way down the Clutha River need not worry about the dangers of spinning hydro turbines on their journey back to the ocean. This is because Contact Energy is now catching and transporting a number of egg-carrying females past the two hydro dams along the river.
For about 40 days this summer, Tony Hishen's been working for Contact Energy to catch as many long-fin eels as possible in Lakes Wanaka, Wakatipu and Hawea. He'll transport the females that are getting ready to lay their eggs safely below the hydro dams, which stand in the way of their long migratory trip to the Pacific Ocean. The others, which are not yet ready for migration, are released back into the lake until next time.
So when an eel's turn into a migrant, they start to change colour, and they go like a bluish sort of colour, like this eel here has. And your eyes get bigger, your heads get pointier. So yeah, most of the eels we catch I call them feeders, so they just get put back into the lake where they've been caught. And they may get caught for another 20 or 30 or 40 years before they actually, reach that stage in their life cycle that they need to be lifted over. So
eels can survive a long time out of water, which is how they've wriggled their way past the hydro dams on their journey upstream in the first place. When they finally reach maturity at about 20 or 30 years of age, the fertilised females return to the same patch of ocean near Tonga where they were born to lay eggs. Unfortunately, hydro dams with turbines spinning at about 1 revolution per second kill a large number of the eels on their way to sea. Which is why Contact Energy contracts experts such as Hishen to catch as many of this at-risk species before they head downstream, setting about 800 eel traps over the summer using GPS to locate the nets the next day.
Go out and lift our nets that we've set the previous day, and then we might move from different locations or just depend on weather and what we're catching, and then basically just lift and set nets all day long, really.
Hishen says the daily catch per eel trap can vary considerably from day to day, with some days only 1 or 2 and other days over 40 per trap. In Wanaka, the South Today.
This year's North Otago Relay for Life was about coming together and showing love to those touched by cancer. Despite gloomy skies, almost 200 people turned up for the relay, which was the first one in North Otago since 2015.
At this year's Relay for Life, a pair of giant scissors didn't prove sharp enough to cut through the ribbon, and a normal-sized pair had to do the job instead, before almost 200 supporters started their laps around Oamaru's Takaro Park, with the first circuit being an honorary lap performed by cancer survivors and carers. The event is designed to raise money for a good cause with local roots.
Hopefully we're going to hit a target of about 45,000, and all that money will stay in the North Otago community to help people support them going through their fight with cancer.
24 teams took part in this year's relay, which is the first time the event's been put on in Oamaru since 2015.
We had a few hiccups along the way, being postponed due to COVID level changes, but as you can see today, we've got lots of really happy participants joining in and giving it their all.
The event ran for much of the afternoon, concluding with a candlelight ceremony. In Oamaru, the South today.
A documentary about Dunedin's Chinese garden is due to go out to schools across Otago. The chairman of the gardens say thousands of copies of a DVD have been produced to help educate youngsters about the province's history.
A newly produced documentary traces the steps from mainland China to Dunedin, having the southernmost authentic Chinese garden.
Why would we ever have a Chinese garden here? So we're linking in they were linking in the story of the early settlers, the gold miners, the Chinese involvement in Otago, Dunedin and New Zealand to this garden.
The documentary started as a Toitu Settlers Museum project driven by Will McKee and Sean Brosnahan. Chairman of the Dunedin Chinese Gardens Trust, Malcolm Wong, says their garden is the genuine article, following a journey undertaken by Mrs. McKee and Brosnahan.
And their byline was the journey to La Yuan. And they came to us with this project, to the Trust, and we also had the enthusiasm of past Chairman Peter Chin.
The Trust is producing digital copies of the documentary, and Malcolm Wong says the Trust hopes the story can be shared well beyond the garden's decorative walls.
This story doesn't belong to the garden and to the people who visit here. It needs to be told to everyone. So the young people we thought were a good source of starting point, and so they came to us with this project of getting the DVDs into schools throughout Otago.
He says the Chinese Gardens Trust and Otago Southland Chinese Association are sponsoring the production of 2,500 DVDs. In Dunedin, the South today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook or YouTube. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.